Alrighty, here we go. A little third act Thursday. Sure, everything's dialed in here. Looking good, looking good. Welcome, everybody. My name is Matt Gardner. Daily dose of LCD, Life Coach Daily. It's also going to get dual streamed over to Beyond Recovery. So those are my two shows I got going on right now. This is a instrumental track I've created for a friend of mine. He's going to be doing a rap over this. Digging it, sounding cool. Fade it out here. All right, third act Thursday. So as the title would suggest, I am going to go through a personal experience. I'm flying solo this week on all these shows. And I'm heading out to Vancouver next week. I'm excited. So I'm getting all of these in the can, as they say, getting them ready. And then they will be time released throughout all of next week while I'm gone. That way, just I could stay on top of content and have it ready and coming out while I am traveling abroad. So I'm excited for that. And so basically today with Third Act Thursday, I'm going to be talking about a crucial turning point time in my life, where it's you say hashtag rebirth. So the third act, so you get your first one is sort of the calling, the threshold, the realization that I always like using the Matrix, the movie The Matrix, as a good parallel or comparison or analogy for this. So realizing that there's something more to life and there's a different option. And you usually, there's a bit of resistance because it's taking you out of your comfort zone and it's not something that's going to completely change your life. There's no going back after you pass this threshold. So there's the calling, right? This idea that there's something more, something different that you have to do. And then the second act is a lot of self development, self-growth, like regrowth. It's the phrase the innermost cave, right? It's basically being a beginner again at a lot of different things, and having to find your footing. And it's often it's like a dip. It's when you say innermost cave, it's a dark spot. It's the dark night of the soul, they call it, right? And then coming out of that is on the other side of that is the third act. So that's where you have your rebirth, you're reborn. You've learned this substantial life lesson and you're a better and stronger person because of it. And you've come out and you are ready to share that with the world and share that with your tribe and have this new profound realization and set of skills that you never would have had you not partaken or partook in this, this hero's journey, so to speak. So for me, I'm going to focus on, it's part of my, addiction recovery story. The latest chapter, I just had my 3-year sobriety birthday on April 9th of this year. So a couple of weeks back at time of recording here, about a week ago, I guess. And so the big thing for me that I leveraged to get into that state of being and state of mind to recover, basically, to get out of this holding pattern that I had with this addiction of alcohol usage, was my dad passed away in a few days before Christmas of 2018. And he was always a heavy drinker, and he was 66, so very young. And he had been still living, the rock and roll lifestyle pretty much his entire adult life, and into retirement and everything. And it was always something he was concerned about, but he was always able to justify it or reframe it in his own way and say, I don't have a drinking problem. I'm not homeless. I'm not, this and that. Right. So it was on his radar. You could tell, but it was never on his radar enough that he would change his behavior. So it was demons, right? It haunted him, and it haunted that whole side of the family, really, as far as like on his dad's side, so my grandpa's side. And so anyway, that happened, and I was flirting with, becoming sober again, and had been holding it fairly well for the majority of 2018, with some glaring, binge weekends here and there. And I was just having a hard time, kind of keeping things moderated as hard as I tried. But I knew that my time was coming. I could feel it, and I needed something to leverage to get to that stage. So my dad passing away, it was a wake up call, of course, and it was tough and tricky and emotional, and there's a lot of kind of going on after that happened. And his celebration of life was April of 2019. And the weekend before I went back home to Prince George, I'm in Edmonton right now. So it's about 8 hours west, a straight shot west from Edmonton to Prince George. I had a pretty sloppy party weekend with some friends, and just all the greatest hits basically were out and in full force, and yeah, and didn't feel too good coming out of that, to be honest with you. And then knowing, that coming out of it, I have an 8 hour drive out to something where I'm supposed to be showing up as my best version of myself. And I wasn't feeling like I was able to do that. And so I remember the morning of, I always left a couple beers out for, hair of the dog. I'd always have a beer or two to kind of like help ease the hangover. And I had one of them right before I hopped in the car to drive. This was like 8 a.m. I'm having a beer. And the second one, I was just like, I'm just not feeling this. I gotta, like, this is enough. So I remember dumping that one out, hopping in the car, and I got to Jasper. Jasper's a Rocky Mountain town. It's just gorgeous, one of my favorite spots on earth. And it's literally to the kilometer to the minute, like the halfway point between Prince George and Edmonton. And yeah, Dad and I used to, and me and my brother and our girlfriends at the time used to meet there early 2000s for ski trips, and that kind of went by the wayside at a certain point in time. But just because it was the halfway point between where my dad was living versus where we were living, so there's some memories there. And I remember just driving through there, and it was a beautiful sunny blue sky day, and it's one of the most beautiful spots on earth, the Rocky Mountains, and just springtime. And I just remember feeling just nothing, like just vacant. And it was a scary feeling. I just felt hopeless and helpless. And I remember recording that, verbalizing that into my phone recorder, and just to kind of get it out of my system. And it was just really dark things that I was saying. And I just decided then and there, I was like, man, enough is enough. This is what I need to leverage myself into, what I need as far as like getting into this next phase of clean living, sobriety. And it was going to be like a tribute to my dad, and putting an end to, it was important to me to put an end to this ancestral, like generational need to drink excessively and with no control, and it's damaging to ourselves and to our relationships and everything else. So that was what I needed. And by the time I got to I've told this part of the story quite a few times, but I haven't really addressed what good came out of it. Right, basically instantaneously, I had a big, profound shift. And by the time I got there, I remember I picked up my brother from the airport in Prince George that same afternoon, and we had this great experience because we went back to this hotel that we had stayed at when we were kids. So instead of going, money was tight, so we would have our vacations like in town with my mom, my brother, and myself, the three of us. And we went to this place called Esther's Inn. It was like this jungle themed hotel that had like water slides. So when you're like, 10 and 12, it's amazing. Even, when my parents were divorced, it was like we were still doing it when I was like 14 and Josh was 16. And probably even longer than that, in around there, 16, 18 is, I think, we kind of started drawing the line, because by that time mom had moved away. And so, but anyway, so that hotel still exists. It's now a Super 8, but it maintained the jungle theme inside. So it was super cool to go back there. And my brother and I hadn't been to sorry, I'm getting like mohair or something. I'm sniffing a lot here. My apologies. And so it was super cool to go back there. It's like going back in time, right? And my brother and I hadn't been back to College Heights, which is like a suburb of Prince George, in like 20 plus years together. So our old house that we grew up in, from the age, like I was age 3 to 17, I think, when I grew up in this house on Trent Drive. And I like to say it's kind of like, it reminds me of like the Wes Anderson movie, The Darjeeling Limited, where it's like Owen Wilson and Adrian Brody and somebody else. I forget who the other actor's name is. And they are on this like train ride to go back home for, I believe it's for their dad's funeral or something along those lines. So very similar. So it kind of felt like that a little bit, like a Wes Anderson movie. And we're going back to the old elementary school we both went to. We're 2 years apart. Josh is a couple of years older than me. I went to like the old park, like Fort George Park, and I did like all the super cool nostalgic areas of the city. My dad had a trailer, so we went by up there and Upper College Heights and checking that out. And I hadn't been to Upper College Heights. It used to be all this forested area that got clear cut. Now there's a Walmart and all the big box stores up there. So it looks completely different. And I hadn't seen it in 20 plus years. So it was really cool to just go back there. And so between the leverage and the strength I needed of the whole backstory with my dad and everything, and just coming out of like a really rough, like shameful empty void inducing weekend of partying, just the stars aligned in that way to make me feel disturbed enough that I needed to change. And then everything that happened after that was enough positivity that just immediately came in. And we talked about earlier in the weekend about converting energy. So it really converted that energy and did a 180 and a big like mind shift. Again, I call back to like the Monday show of Mind Shift Monday. That's what I needed, and that's what I got. And that was that springboarded me or sprungboarded me into this past 3 years of alcohol-free and sobriety. So that is my third act Thursday story for the day. I hope all y'all have a great rest of your week. We will see you tomorrow. I got one more show, and it's the first ever edition of Up Friday. So I will see you tomorrow. Thank you very much.